The humans are coming. 3 simple words that sent the entire Galactic Council into a frenzy. I watched as my fellow representatives scrambled like startled prey, their appendages flailing in what could only be described as pure, unadulterated panic. Quite the overreaction, if you asked me. But nobody was asking me. They never did. Order. I demand order, shouted High Counselor Vix Talon, his voice amplifiers cranked to maximum. His 7-eye stalks quivered with frustration as he pounded his ceremonial gravity gavel against the podium. The sound reverberated through the massive chamber, temporarily halting the chaos. I, Zephra Cole, representative of the Nexilian Collective, remained seated, my 4 arms crossed in what humans might recognize as a gesture of impatience. Was I the only one with a functioning brain stem in this entire assembly? The reports are confirmed, continued Vix Talon, his voice now lowered to a dramatic whisper that somehow still carried across the chamber. A human delegation has requested formal contact. They will arrive within 3 solar cycles. The panic resumed, twice as loud. They will kill us all. Their ships are powered by exploding stars. I heard they eat their young. They breathe fire when angered. I couldn't help but roll all 3 of my eyes simultaneously. The Council had clearly been consuming too many black market human entertainment transmissions. Next, someone would claim humans could shoot lasers from their eyeballs or transform into muscular green rage monsters. If I may speak, I said, standing up without waiting for permission. I never waited for permission. It was a personality flaw my maternal unit had often criticized, along with my insufferable rationality and inappropriate timing for humor. Vix Talon glared at me with the kind of disdain reserved for politicians who speak out of turn. Representative Cole, the floor recognizes you, since you have already taken it. Thank you, High Counselor, I replied, not bothering to mask my sarcasm. While everyone is busy having collective respiratory failure, perhaps we should consider the actual facts about humans, rather than propaganda from questionable sources. A murmur rippled through the assembly. I pressed on. Yes, humans come from a death world with gravity that would crush most of us. Yes, they evolved as pursuit predators capable of chasing prey until it collapses from exhaustion. Yes, they can survive injuries that would kill most species. And yes, they have a concerning history of internal conflicts. The chamber grew quiet. I had their attention now. But they are also creators, explorers, and problem solvers. They developed space travel despite having no natural ability to fly. They created art despite having no telepathic abilities. They formed global civilizations despite having no hive mind. And most importantly, they have spent the last century trying to contact us peacefully. Representative Cole interrupted Councillor Kiasmar of the Thraxi Dominion, his voice dripping with condescension. Your fascination with human culture is well documented, and frankly concerning. Need I remind the Council that Representative Cole has an extensive collection of human literature and has even learned their barbaric languages. I felt my skin flush purple with annoyance. I prefer the term a research, Councillor. Something more of you might consider before voting on matters of galactic importance. Before Kiasmar could retort, High Counselor Vix Talon intervened. Regardless of Representative Cole's hobbies, we must prepare for the humans' arrival. Their ship will dock at Starbase Epsilon in 3 cycles. We need a delegation to meet them. The silence that followed was almost comical. Suddenly, representatives who moments ago had been shouting about human threats were finding their data screens fascinating, their footwear mysterious, anything to avoid eye contact. I volunteer, I said, surprising absolutely no one. Vix Talon sighed. Any other volunteers? The silence continued. Very well. Representative Cole will lead the delegation. Select 4 additional representatives from your staff. Actually, I replied, I prefer to go alone. The collective gasp was so dramatic it nearly changed the atmospheric pressure within the chamber. Impossible, shouted someone from the back. Suicidal, yelled another. Talon's eye stalks twisted in what I recognized as confusion. Representative Cole, this is highly irregular. Protocol demands a minimum delegation of 5 for first contact scenarios. I shrugged, a human gesture I'd adopted that particularly annoyed my colleagues. Counselor, with all due respect to protocol, which is minimal, sending 5 terrified representatives who believe humans eat babies and breathe fire seems counterproductive to establishing peaceful relations. I am not afraid of humans, Talon declared, though his trembling eye stalks suggested otherwise. Excellent. Then you will join me? I asked, knowing full well he would rather swim in the acid lakes of Bor Nax Vi. I have administrative duties that require my presence here, he stammered. How convenient. Anyone else brave enough to join me? The silence was my answer. As I thought, I will go alone and transmit regular updates. If I'm eaten, feel free to say I told you so at my memorial service. With that, I left the council chamber, already mentally preparing for what would undoubtedly be the most interesting assignment of my career. Starbase Epsilon was typically a bustling hub of interstellar commerce, but as I arrived, I found it eerily empty. Word of the human delegation had spread, and most travelers had rescheduled their journeys to avoid potential contact with the terrifying Earth dwellers. I stood alone in the diplomatic reception area, dressed in my formal attire, a flowing robe of Nexilian silk in shades of blue and purple that complemented my lavender skin tone. My forearms were adorned with the traditional silver bands of my profession, and my cranial crest was polished to a shine. Representative Cole, called Station Director Pax Loren, hurrying toward me with the anxious energy of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. The human vessel has entered our solar system. They will dock in approximately 20 minutes. Thank you, Director. Is everything prepared according to my specifications? Pax Loren's facial tendrils twisted nervously. Yes, though I must question the wisdom of providing them with access to unrestricted areas of the station. Director, humans value trust. Meeting them in what amounts to a glorified prison cell would start our relationship poorly. But the security risks are minimal compared to the diplomatic risks of insulting our first human delegation, I interrupted. Now, unless you have actual concerns based on fact rather than rumor, I suggest you prepare to welcome our guests. Pax Loren retreated, mumbling something about career suicide and filing for a transfer. I spent the remaining time reviewing my notes on human customs, a direct eye contact as a sign of respect, physical distance of approximately 1 meter during conversations, no sudden movements that might be interpreted as aggression, and absolutely no telepathic scanning without permission, not that I possessed that ability, but some species in the council did. The station's announcement system chimed. Attention, unknown vessel approaching docking bay 3. All non-essential personnel evacuate the area immediately. I couldn't help but laugh at the unknown vessel designation, despite the ship being precisely where it was scheduled to be. Here made fools of even the most intelligent beings. Making my way to docking bay 3, I found myself completely alone. Every station worker had apparently decided they were non-essential personnel today. How convenient. And the massive airlock doors hummed as the docking procedure completed. My hearts pounded against my rib cage, 2 steady beats followed by a flutter, the Nexilian version of nervousness. This was it. First official contact with humans after decades of intercepting their transmissions, studying their culture from afar, and debating their nature in council sessions. The airlock cycled, and the doors slid open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. And there they stood. 3 humans, not the army of bloodthirsty warriors the council had feared. They were shorter than I expected, averaging about 2/3 of my height. Their skin tones varied from light beige to deep brown, their clothing simple but elegant, blue and black garments with what appeared to be their planetary emblem on the shoulders. The central figure stepped forward. Female, based on my research of human dimorphism, short auburn hair, eyes the color of Terran oceans, and a facial expression I recognized as cautious optimism. "Greetings," she said in perfect galactic standard, surprising me. "I am Captain Maya Patel of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. These are my colleagues, Dr. Lucas Torres and Security Chief Kira Nakamura. I bowed slightly, as my research indicated was appropriate in human diplomatic circles. Welcome to Starbase Epsilon, Captain Patel. I am Zephyra Cole, representative of the Nexilian Collective and designated envoy of the Galactic Council. Captain Patel raised an eyebrow. Just you? We were expecting a larger delegation. I smiled, or at least made the Nexilian approximation of a smile. Let's just say that human reputation precedes you, and not everyone shares my enthusiasm for interspecies dialogue. Dr. Torres, a male with darker skin and closely cropped black hair, laughed. They are afraid of us, aren't they? Terrified would be more accurate, I admitted. There are council members who believe you consume the organs of your enemies and can survive decapitation. Chief Nakamura, who had been scanning the empty reception area with alert eyes, snorted. Only on Tuesdays. My third eye blinked in confusion before I realized it was humor. Ah, sarcasm. I have studied this aspect of human communication extensively. You will get plenty of practice with this crew, Captain Patel said with a warm smile. Shall we proceed with the formal introductions? We have prepared gifts, as is customary. I gestured toward the diplomatic suite. Of course. Please follow me. As we walked through the empty corridors, I could feel the humans taking in every detail of their surroundings, not with fear or aggression, but with undisguised curiosity. Their eyes darted from architectural features to information displays, absorbing and analyzing. Your station seems understaffed, observed Dr. Torres. A temporary situation, I replied diplomatically, but news of your arrival caused some schedule adjustments. They ran away, Chief Nakamura stated flatly. I appreciated her directness. Essentially, yes. And you didn't? Captain Patel asked, studying me with those piercing blue eyes. I find fear based on ignorance to be illogical. I prefer knowledge over hysteria. We reached the diplomatic suite, a spacious room with a large viewport overlooking the starfield. The table was set with refreshments safe for human consumption and comfortable seating arranged to accommodate human physiology. Impressive preparation, noted Captain Patel, examining the earth fruits and water provided. You have studied us thoroughly. I consider myself something of a specialist in human culture, I admitted, gesturing for them to be seated. Though I have many questions that records couldn't answer. Ask away, Dr. Torres said, selecting a fruit that my research identified as an apple. That's why we are here. Cultural exchange is the foundation of diplomacy. I settled into my seat, adjusting my forearms into a comfortable position. Perhaps we could start with something that has puzzled the Council greatly. Given your species' violent history, how did you achieve interstellar peace? The three humans exchanged glances, a form of non-verbal communication I found fascinating. We didn't, Captain Patel answered honestly. Earth still has conflicts. We have reduced them significantly, eliminated the most destructive weapons, but we are still working on peace. Yet you ventured into space together? Nothing unites humans like a common goal, Chief Nakamura explained, her expression serious. Or a common threat. A chill ran down my spine, vibrating my dorsal ridges. Are we perceived as a threat? Dr. Torres laughed, diffusing the tension. No, she means theoretically. Humans have a unique ability to set aside differences when facing external challenges. Space exploration became that challenge. I relaxed slightly. Fascinating. Most council species achieved internal harmony before developing space travel. Different evolutionary paths, Captain Patel suggested. May I ask a question now, Representative Cole? Of course. Why aren't you scared of us? Everyone else seems to be. The directness of the question caught me off guard. I considered my response carefully. Because fear is a poor advisor. Because judging an entire species based on intercepted entertainment broadcasts is absurd. Because any civilization capable of developing faster than light travel without destroying themselves deserves respect. not terror. Captain Patel nodded slowly. A logical approach, but not common, apparently. Logic is rarely common, Captain, regardless of species. This earned a genuine laugh from all three humans. I think we are going to get along just fine, Representative Cole, said Captain Patel. As our conversation continued into the night cycle, covering topics from art to zoology, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of optimism. The humans were forthright about their flaws, passionate about their achievements, and genuinely interested in galactic cooperation. What the Council feared as dangerous unpredictability, I was beginning to recognize as remarkable adaptability. Where others saw potential for violence, I witnessed capacity for innovation. By the time our initial meeting concluded, one thing had become abundantly clear: the Galactic Council had grossly misunderstood humanity, and their arrival was not a threat to be feared, but an opportunity to be embraced. Little did I know that within 48 hours, those same peaceful humans would be fighting for their lives and mine against an enemy that had been hiding in plain sight all along. And that's when I would discover why the Council should have been afraid of humans, just not for the reasons they thought. The next morning cycle found me leading Captain Patel and her team on a tour of Starbase Epsilon. Dr. Torres seemed particularly fascinated by our gravity manipulation technology, while Chief Nakamura maintained a vigilant posture, her dark eyes constantly scanning our surroundings. Your security officer never relaxes, does she? I asked Captain Patel as we entered the hydroponics section, a vast chamber filled with flora from 100 worlds. Maya smiled. Kira takes her job seriously. It's why she's the best. Does she expect trouble here? I assure you the station is secure. Before Maya could answer, Kira stepped closer. With respect, Representative Cole, security isn't about expectations. It's about preparation. I found myself admiring her professionalism, a wise approach. Though I must admit, the only danger you face here is boredom. Most of the station personnel are still indisposed. Hiding, Dr. Torres corrected with a grin, examining a floating cluster of luminescent Jovian fungi. Though I can't complain about the private tour. A notification chimed on my communication band. Excuse me, I said, stepping aside to view the message. It was from High Counselor Vix Talon, urgent, delegation from Thraxi Dominion arriving. Stall humans. Do not allow departure until Counselor Kiasmar arrives. I frowned. The Thraxi had been particularly vocal about the human threat during council sessions. Why would Kesmar suddenly show interest in direct contact? Everything all right? Maya asked, noticing my expression. Yes, just council politics, I replied, deciding transparency was best. It seems Counselor Kiasmar of the Thraxi Dominion is suddenly interested in meeting you, despite previously referring to humans as barbaric mammals with delusions of importance. Dr. Torres laughed. Well, we have been called worse. When will they arrive? Kira asked, her relaxed demeanor instantly shifting to alert. Within the hour. We can return to the diplomatic suite to receive them properly. Maya and Lucas seemed unbothered by the news, but I noticed Kira subtly touch a device on her wrist. The gesture triggered a ping on my security band. She'd just activated some kind of signal. Is there a problem, Chief Nakamura? I asked directly. She met my gaze without hesitation, just updating our ship about the change in schedule. Her answer seemed reasonable, but my third eye evolved to detect subtle energy fields, noticed an elevated reading from her. Stress? Concern? It was difficult to interpret human physiological responses accurately. As we made our way back toward the diplomatic section, I found myself growing uneasy. The Thraxi were notoriously xenophobic. Their sudden interest in humans contradicted decades of isolationist policy. We had just entered the main corridor when the station's alarm system blared to life. Red lights pulsed along the walls as an automated voice announced, "Security breach in Docking Bay 5. Unknown contaminant detected. All personnel initiate quarantine protocols." What's happening? Maya demanded, instantly in command mode. I don't know, I replied honestly, checking my security band. Docking Bay 5 is where the Thraxi ship is scheduled to arrive, but they shouldn't be here yet. Kira stepped forward. We need to return to our vessel immediately. Impossible. During quarantine protocols, all docking clamps are locked. No ships can depart. The lights flickered, then dimmed to emergency levels. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated momentarily, causing us all to stumble. That's not a quarantine procedure, I muttered, my heart's accelerating with alarm. The station's primary systems are being overridden. Lucas pulled out a small device and began scanning. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures throughout this section. Some kind of dampening field. We need weapons, Kira stated flatly, her hand hovering near her hip where I suddenly realized she had been carrying a concealed device all along. Weapons? I echoed, my vocal membranes vibrating with stress. This is a diplomatic station. A new voice interrupted our conversation, one that sent a chill through my central nervous system. Indeed it is, Representative Cole. How disappointing to find you consorting with these creatures. Councillor Kiesmar stood at the end of the corridor, flanked by 6 Thraxi guards. Their exoskeletons gleamed under the emergency lighting, chitinous armor covering insectoid forms that towered over even my considerable height. Each guard carried a pulsing staff tipped with energy that made my skin prickle. Councillor Kiesmar, I acknowledged, trying to keep my voice steady. Your arrival is premature, and your methods concerning. Why have you triggered quarantine protocols? Kesmar's mandibles clicked in what I recognized as amusement. Oh, not quarantine. Purification. Maya stepped forward, placing herself partially between me and the Thraxi. Counselor, I'm Captain Maya Patel of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. Whatever concerns you have. Silence, human. Kesmar interrupted. Your kind represents everything that threatens galactic stability. Unpredictable. Adaptable. Uncontrollable. Kira had shifted into a subtle stance I didn't recognize, while Lucas moved closer to Maya. I noticed he had palmed his scanning device in a way that suggested it might serve purposes beyond scientific inquiry. The council voted for peaceful contact, I reminded Kiesmar, trying to understand what was happening. This violates all protocols. The council is weak, Kesmar hissed. For generations we have maintained order through predictability. Each species knows its place, its purpose. Then we intercept human transmissions, beings who transform their own genetic code to cure diseases, who modify their planet's climate, who create artificial intelligence as companions, beings who change. A horrifying realization dawned on me. This isn't about fear. You have been manipulating the council, exaggerating human aggression to justify isolation. You don't fear humans because they are violent, you fear them because they are innovative. Innovation breeds chaos, Kesmar stated, his tone suggesting he was explaining a simple truth to a child. The Thraxi have guided galactic development for millennia, culling dangerous evolutionary branches before they could spread, as we will do now. He raised a clawed appendage, and the guards readied their weapons. Run, Kira whispered, so quietly I barely heard her. Then everything happened at once. Lucas threw his device toward the Thraxi. Instead of a simple scanner, it erupted in a blinding flash that overloaded my visual receptors. Kira's concealed weapon appeared in her hand, firing not at the guards but at the corridor's structural supports. Metal groaned as the ceiling between us and the Thraxi collapsed, creating a temporary barrier. This way, Maya shouted, already moving in the opposite direction. Lucas, emergency protocol Theta. I found myself running alongside the humans, my forelegs easily keeping pace. Where are we going? The station is locked down. To make a very important call, Lucas replied grimly, tapping furiously on another device he'd produced from his pocket. We rounded a corner and found ourselves facing a maintenance junction. Kira immediately began working on the access panel. You came armed to a diplomatic meeting, I accused, my respiratory rate elevated from more than just physical exertion. We came prepared, Maya corrected, her expression serious. Earth has been monitoring communications for decades. Representative. We detected concerning patterns in Thraxi transmissions, suggesting they have been systematically isolating emerging species before eliminating them. The access panel slid open under Kira's ministrations. Inside, quickly, she ordered. The maintenance tunnel was cramped for my frame, but I squeezed through, following the humans through a maze of service corridors. If you suspected the Thraxi, why come at all? I asked as we moved. Why risk yourselves? Maya looked back at me, her blue eyes intense. Because civilization requires courage. Because hiding from potential threats guarantees extinction. Because we hoped we were wrong. We emerged into a secondary control room, unused during normal operations. Lucas immediately began accessing the systems. What are you doing? I asked, watching as unfamiliar code scrolled across the screens. Bypassing the lockdown to send a message, he explained without looking up. Our ship needs to know what's happening. The screens suddenly flickered, then displayed Kesmar's face. A fascinating attempt. Humans, your reputation for resourcefulness is well earned. The image pulled back to reveal Station Director Pax Loran held firmly by Thraxi guards, terror evident in his wildly swinging eye stalks. I have taken control of all station systems, Kesmar continued. Surrender yourself, and the station personnel will be unharmed. Resist, and we will vent atmosphere section by section. To emphasize his point, emergency doors began slamming shut throughout the station, the sounds echoing ominously through the corridors. He's isolating compartments, I explained, horror growing within me. He can selectively depressurize any section. Maya turned to me, her expression grave. Is there any way to override the system? Not from here. We'd need access to the primary command center, and it's undoubtedly where Kesmar is now. Time to go loud. Then, Kira stated, checking her weapon. Lucas looked up from the console. Message sent, but the Thraxi are jamming communications. No confirmation of receipt. Maya nodded, seeming to come to a decision. Cole, what's the quickest route to the command center? You can't be serious, I protested. The Thraxi are an ancient warrior species with biological armor and superior numbers. And we are humans, Maya replied simply. Kira, options? The security chief gestured to the maintenance shafts. These run throughout the station. If we can access the vertical tubes, we could reach command from below. I stared at them in disbelief. This is suicide. The sensible option is to hide until help arrives. Will help arrive? Lucas asked quietly. If the Thraxi have been manipulating the Council for generations, who exactly is coming to save us? The truth of his words struck me like a gravitational hammer. The Council had been systematically taught to fear humans while the real threat lurked among us, shaping our policies and perceptions. Why aren't you scared? I asked, genuinely baffled by their calm determination in the face of such overwhelming odds. Maya's answer still haunts me to this day. Being scared and giving up are different things, Representative. Humans have evolved with fear as our constant companion. We don't eliminate it, we use it. With that, she outlined a plan so audacious I was certain it would fail. Yet having no better options, I agreed to help. The journey through the maintenance shafts was claustrophobic and dangerous. Twice we had to backtrack when we encountered Thraxi search parties. Once we nearly lost Lucas when a section he was crossing suddenly depressurized, saved only by Kira's lightning reflexes as she hauled him to safety. Throughout it all, the humans maintained a focused determination that bordered on frightening. They communicated with minimal words, coordinating through gestures and expressions I could barely interpret. They adapted to each obstacle with improvised solutions that would never have occurred to me. When we finally reached the access point beneath the command center, I was exhausted, my limbs trembling with fatigue. The humans, despite their higher metabolic requirements and shorter limbs, seemed barely winded. Ready? Maya whispered, looking at each of us. Lucas nodded, checking a makeshift device he'd assembled from parts scavenged along our journey. Disruptor ready. One shot only. Kira? And, the security chief smiled grimly. Just get me line of sight. Maya turned to me. Representative Cole, you don't have to come. You have already done more than enough by guiding us here. I was tempted to stay behind, to let these remarkable creatures handle the threat while I remained safely hidden. But something in their unwavering resolve stirred a long-dormant instinct within me. I represent the Nexilian Collective, I replied, straightening my posture, and the true spirit of the Galactic Council. I'm coming. The faint smile Maya gave me held something I hadn't seen directed at me before, respect. The next minutes passed in a blur of action. Lucas's device disabled the command center's internal security. Kira moved with impossible speed, neutralizing 3 Thraxi guards before they could react. Maya and I focused on reaching the environmental controls while chaos erupted around us. Kesmar's rage was terrible to behold as he realized his plans were unraveling. You primitive monsters, he shrieked, mandibles spread wide in aggression. We have guided civilization for 10,000 years. We determine which species deserve to evolve. That's your problem, Maya replied, her voice steady even as she worked to reverse the atmospheric controls. Evolution isn't about deserving, it's about adapting. The counselor lunged toward her with deadly intent, his natural weaponry extended. Without thinking, I threw myself between them, using all 4 of my arms to grapple with his chitinous form. Pain exploded across my torso as his claws found purchase in my flesh. I heard Kira shout something, then a blast of energy struck Kesmar, sending us both tumbling to the floor. Through a haze of pain, I saw Lucas complete the override sequence, restoring atmospheric pressure throughout the station. Hold on, Cole. Maya's voice seemed distant as she knelt beside me, applying pressure to my wounds. Help is coming. How do you know? I gasped, my respiratory system struggling. The command center's communications suddenly crackled to life with a voice I didn't recognize. Starbase Epsilon. This is Captain Eli Bennett of the Earth vessel Horizon. We received your distress call and have neutralized the Thraxi vessels. Boarding parties en route to your location. Hold tight. Maya smiled down at me, because humans never travel alone. As my consciousness began to fade, I heard Kesmar's pained voice from where he lay restrained. Why aren't you scared, human? You should be terrified of us. Maya's reply would forever change my understanding of the species I had studied for so long. We are scared. We are scared of failing, of dying, of losing those we care about. But fear doesn't control us, it drives us. Every human achievement, from fire to flight to faster than light travel, came because we were afraid of what would happen if we didn't try. Your mistake wasn't underestimating our strength. It was thinking our fear was a weakness. 3 lunar cycles later, I stood before the Galactic Council once more. My wounds had healed, though 4 new scars across my torso would forever remind me of that day. The council chamber buzzed with unprecedented energy. Representatives who had once hidden from humans now vied for introductions to the expanded Earth delegation. The Thraxi seats stood empty, their dominion now under investigation for crimes spanning centuries. Representative Cole, High Counselor Vix Talon acknowledged me, his eye stalks now steady in my presence. The floor recognizes you. I took a moment to look around the chamber before speaking. Counselors, for generations we have defined civilization by stability, predictability, and conformity. We sought safety in stagnation. In doing so, we nearly allowed ourselves to be manipulated into destroying perhaps the most remarkable species we have yet encountered. The humans in the diplomatic box nodded encouragingly. Maya, now appointed as Earth's permanent ambassador, gave me a subtle thumbs-up gesture. Humans are not fearless, I continued. They are afraid of countless things. But rather than allowing fear to paralyze them, they transform it into determination. They do not evolve despite their fears, but because of them. I gestured to the empty Thraxi seats. The real threat to our galactic community was never those who embraced change, but those who feared it so much they sought to control all evolution. In clinging to stability, we almost lost our future. The vote that followed was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, the first of many changes that would reshape our civilization in the cycles to come. Later, at the formal reception, Maya found me observing the stars through the council chamber's vast viewport. "Quite a speech," she commented, handing me a glass of compatible refreshment. "Though I notice you left out the part where you saved my life." I made the next zillion approximation of a shrug, a diplomatic omission. Besides, your security chief Nakamura had already targeted Key as Mar. I merely reached him first. Still, it was brave. It was necessary, I corrected, and perhaps the least terrifying option in that moment. Maya laughed, the sound still fascinating to my auditory receptors. "Now you are thinking like a human." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars where thousands of worlds awaited discovery. "What happens next?" I finally asked. Maya smiled, her eyes reflecting the distant suns. "We explore. We learn. We make mistakes and fix them. We evolve, together." "It sounds chaotic," I observed. "Completely," she agreed. "Isn't it wonderful?" And for the first time in my life, I found myself embracing the exhilarating uncertainty of a future I could not predict. Perhaps that was the most valuable lesson humans had to teach us, that true civilization isn't built on the absence of fear, but on the courage to move forward despite it. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would I.